Well, good morning, everybody. We are the Frozen Chosen here this morning, so it's good to be with you all. I don't know if you had the very fortunate, or depending on how you looked at it, unfortunate experience this past Thanksgiving, of showing up to Thanksgiving dinner already full. Maybe you were doing the Thanksgiving circuit, bouncing from one family's house to the next, and you were really testing your body's capacity for food. And maybe in between dinners, you started doing some jumping jacks or push-ups just to create a little bit more space, but you got to that point where even just the mere sight or thought of food was met with a wince. You came to the realization that you simply could not take on any more. You were already so full. And I wonder if in that there's not a spiritual principle at play. The book of Proverbs in the Old Testament says that he who is full loathes honey. That even the sweetest of things can be hated and not wanted by those people that are already full in their body. But as we enter into the season of Advent this morning, we are reminded of this reality, that we can't simply pull Jesus into an already full life. Do you remember when Jesus called his first disciples to follow him? Andrew and John at the side of the Sea of Galilee. They had to drop their nets and then follow him. And so often we can try to pull our lives of faith, our relationships with God, into an already full life, and we find that it doesn't work. And so as we begin this season of Advent, we are to ask ourselves this question: how much room is there in my life for God? How much space is there in my life for God to come and enter? Because I can guarantee you this: where God finds space in your life, where God finds space in your heart, in your mind, he will come and he will enter. You know, this season has us thinking about that great Christmas carol, Joy to the World. Let every heart prepare him room. Let every heart prepare him room. And we're reminded of that first Christmas story, that there was no room for him in the inn. And these are much more than just nice sentimental images, but actually very profound spiritual truths. That God does not force himself into our life, nor is it God who can create space in your life for him. Rather, it has to be you and me that creates the space within which God can enter and reside and fill our lives. But we also recognize that this is really difficult, especially this season beyond all. Charles Dickens in A Christmas Carol has this great line, that this is the time of the year when abundance rejoices. This is the time of year when it seems as though our lives and our minds become increasingly filled. Everything from filling stockings to filling our schedules. And our lives can become so full that we can lose sight of what actually we are to do as Christians over the course of this season. Just this past Friday, Black Friday, I noticed how full my email inbox got from literally every company that I have ever purchased anything from with their Black Friday sales. I don't know why Staples and Vistaprint have to have Black Friday sales, but they were letting me know, hey, we're selling you something cheaper. And our minds are being bombarded right now by this temptation to fill, to fill, to fill. And yet, our Christian response, our Christian posture over these 4 weeks of Advent is the complete opposite. It is not to fill, it is to clear. How can I clear space in my life so that when the Lord comes, he can move in? You know, Advent is a time when we focus on the three comings of Christ. Yes, it is a time when we recall his coming 2,000 years ago as a baby in that manger of Bethlehem. And it is also a time, as our reading suggests to us quite clearly today, in which we prepare for his second coming, whether that is at the end of time or at the end of our life. But it is equally a time when we prepare for Christ's desire to enter our lives right here and right now. Paul to the Romans today said, you know the time, you know the hour, it's right now. Our salvation is right now and here, closer than when we first believed. When does Christ want to enter into your life and my life? Not 2,000 years ago, not sometime in the distant future at an unknown time, but right now, Christ wants to enter your life and my life. But is there room for him to do so? So how do we do it? How do we go about this busy season with so much focus on filling us up in such a way that we can clear space? Well, you know, this is the time when we make Christmas lists. And I can promise you this, as a kid, you can ask my mom, I had my first iteration of a Christmas list done by October 1st. I love them. I love asking for gifts, I'm not going to lie. But we all know this practice of making Christmas lists. But I read a little while ago from a Harvard professor, Arthur Brooks. He's not only a professor at the Harvard Business School, he's also a very devout Catholic. And he teaches a course at Harvard on happiness, and it's the most sought-after class on campus. And he says every year on his birthday, he has this practice of writing down a reverse bucket list. A reverse bucket list. He writes down all of the things that he wants, all of his desires, all of his cravings, and he just lists them out. And then one by one, he starts to cross them off. He acknowledges what it is that he wants. He acknowledges what it is he's craving, what it is he's trying to fill his life up with. And then one by one, he crosses them out. Not saying that, hey, I'm never going to get this thing, but detaching himself from that thing. And he says this is a key practice for him in growing in happiness, that it's not the thing that I think will make me happy, but rather in detachment I find myself happier. And what if we did something similar this season of Advent to prepare for Christmas? What if we did a reverse Christmas list? What if I really took the time to notice what it is deep down that I want? What it is that I'm striving after? And it might be something as kind of superficial as the new hunting jacket that I asked my parents for. Or it might be something as big as a promotion at work or healing for a family member. All of these things, if you do this, I promise you almost everything you write down, if not everything that you write down, it will not be bad. It will be good things. But one by one, as you start crossing them off, and prayerfully saying, Lord, I will not be attached to attaining this thing, to filling my life up with this thing or not. What's happening? You will be clearing up space in your life, detached from the things that so often fill us. But I think something else will happen, everybody. In the measure that I detach myself from the things of this world, will I reawaken a desire in myself for something deeper, but also something higher. Namely, this desire implanted in me and you for God alone. St. Augustine said, "Lord, you've made us for yourself, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." Our readings this weekend speak about waking up and staying awake. What so often lulls to sleep this desire for God in us? It is the incessant desire for lesser loves. It is this constant grasping for the next thing or the newest thing that starts to suffocate, starts to put to sleep this desire we have that can only be satisfied by God alone. Just as we fill ourselves up at Thanksgiving dinner to the point where all I can do is really sleep, so in the pursuit of earthly things, not bad things, just worldly things, I can start to siphon off the life to that desire I have deep down for the Lord. And this season of Advent is all about waking up. This desire that God has implanted in us, but then has entrusted to us for himself alone. And in the measure that I can detach myself from the things of this life, will this desire for the Lord start to really take root and grow? And it will create space and room in you and I to be filled up by the Lord alone. And the place where the Lord enters our life, that's when we start to experience joy. That happiness is never fully found on the other side of this or that thing. Happiness, the kind that truly lasts, is found in God and God alone. We've got some parishioners who have a family member who is in formation for the Missionaries of Charity. This is Mother Teresa's congregation of religious women. And I was talking to them a couple weeks ago, and they said that every couple of weeks in the convent, they switch beds. They jump from one bed to the next so that they don't become too attached to this thing like their own bed. And I thought, that sounds awful. I can't imagine doing that. But you know what? I guarantee that in their detachment, not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying there isn't grumbling, because they are human, but I guarantee that in their detachment from worldly comforts, from worldly goods, enlivens in their hearts, in their minds, in their lives, a deeper desire for God to come and enter. And the result of this is always joy, is always happiness, is always a contentment that the world cannot provide. Only the Lord can. So friends, this season is all about waking up to this reality that God is presently trying to enter our lives. And yet so often we can find ourselves numb or asleep to it. Just one last image, and then I'll sit down. On Thursday night, after a couple Thanksgiving dinners, I was sitting in the living room, and I was surrounded by 12 nieces and nephews under the age of 10. And they are so full of life, and they're running all around me, and I found in myself this impulse, almost a compulsion, to reach in my pocket and pull out my phone and stare at it. To be sucked into the world of Twitter or my inbox or whatever it is when there is a fullness of life surrounding me. And it hit me how silly that is. To be sucked into a lesser thing when this much more beautiful and real thing is all around me. Friends, Advent is our time to lift up our eyes, to stop focusing on the lesser things and instead on the higher things. The prophet Isaiah began our season of Advent with talking about this climbing up the highest mountain. And climbing the highest mountain is not easy. But as if we have our eyes set on that which is above, not that which is below. This desire we have, that is this thing that makes us human, this desire for God, it will grow in each and every one of us so that when the Lord comes, yes, at Christmas, yes, at the end of time, but yes, today, here and now he will find space to enter.